was in my apartment in Manila in the fall of 2000, and I just finished watching Lion in Winter with Peter O'Toole and Katharine Hepburn. Great movie, great play. And I started to wonder, I thought, well, okay, Henry II wasn't a very important king because he introduced a lot of the bureaucracy that is still fundamental in British society today. But the most important date is the year 1066. It was the year that England was invaded and subjugated by a foreign power for the last time. In this case, the Normans. And it's the one date that is ingrained in every child's brain at school in history, 1066. In 1966, when I was 12, the British government issued the 1066 commemorative stamps commemorating the 900th anniversary of the Battle of Hastings, and all taken from the Bayeux Tapestry. So I thought, well, okay, let's check up on IMDb, which is the International Movie Database, and to see if anyone's ever done a movie on 1066. Well, there was one movie done in Eastern Europe called William the Conqueror, which really apparently didn't get much of a showing around the world. There were a couple of, I think, BBC programs, but nothing substantial. So I thought, okay, good, we're going to write this script, 1066. I mean, how hard can it be? I've written 25 scripts already, so let's do some research. Of course, the real problem is when you start researching this project is that there's an awful lot written about William the Conqueror because he won the battle. There is not so much written about King Harold, King Harold's family, which is the Godwins, and not too much written about the Saxon side. And there's a group of documents called the Saxon Chronicles, which are 4 slightly different versions, which gives you a rough account, but when reading that you tend to think, this looks like it's got a lot of Norman influence. So I set about doing my research, and I started writing my first script. And about 3 or 4 months later, I had a finished script. Now, in the movie, I have 2 great battles. In fact, there were 3, but I have 2 great battles in it. That's Stamford Bridge and the Battle of Hastings. There was one before that at Fulford. I don't really cover that too much because you get to the point where you just oversaturate the movie with warfare. So I estimated screen time for the 2 battles at about an hour. And then before that I had about 28 pages of script, which is at about a minute a page is 28 minutes. And I sat there and I read through it, and it was rubbish. It was just absolutely appalling. I said, this is not going to work. So I started doing a lot more research online. I bought lots of books on the period, and then I moved to Singapore, and I spent another 1.5 years researching there. And about 11 rewrites later, I got to a script that I was pretty happy with. And writing historical scripts is probably the hardest thing you can possibly do. I mean, most of my scripts are contemporary, so it's within my reference field, or if I talk to my father about the Second World War and I have a Second World War story, there is some reference, I have some first-hand information. But with historical scripts, it's just extremely difficult. So on my 11th rewrite, I thought, well, okay, I have something, it's pretty good, it's 150 pages, plus the battle scenes, so we're talking about 245, 3 hours, which is already enough to start everyone in Hollywood shaking, because no one in Hollywood likes to read a script more than 120 pages. But, well, let's put that to one side for a moment. And then I came across a book called Harold by Helen Hollick. And I read the book, and I thought, wow, this is a good book. She has certain characterizations and certain little small incidences that can help me meld my scenes together. and help me give some of the characters greater depth. You know, William and Matilda, I have those characters down. But some of the other characters, some of Harold's brothers and things like that, I really didn't have down. So I wrote to Helen and I said, look, hey, I'm writing this script. I'd like to use some of your book and some of the characterizations and to put into my movie because I think it will make it better. So Helen said, yes, great, you know, use whatever you want to use. So I did a rewrite, and now I'm up to 186 pages plus battle scenes. So it's at least a 3.5-hour movie, which is going to turn everyone off in Hollywood because no one wants to read anything, as I said, over 120 pages. But what I then had was a very cohesive script, a script that I was actually quite happy with, given that in any script you will have a certain number of rewrites. For example, once we've tied up the locations, I'm going to have to do some rewrites. Once we do rehearsal with the actors, the input from the actors is very important. If I have someone playing a character, I expect them to bring something to that character. I mean, they are the actor. And that means they may want to change some of the dialogue, they may want to twist it around. And during the rehearsals, that's when you really fine-tune the script. That's when you make it tighter. And that has to be done with the actors.